The office smelled like old paper and burned wires. Rourke sat still, staring at the folder left on his desk by a man who didn't give his name. Inside were contracts, bank slips, and memos stamped confidential. The documents told one story. The crash of 2008 wasn't an accident. It was planned, a setup where working families lost everything while the wealthy grabbed more. Bailouts went to the guilty, not the victims. Another paper showed how digital money systems were being tested, ones that could be shut off with one command, cutting access to savings in seconds. A world map showed red zones across poorer nations, each one crushed under loans from global lenders. Promises were made, but the only result was broken schools and hungry children. As Rourke flipped through the last page, he found something chilling. His own investigation had been tracked. Notes on his calls, his contacts, his movements. The final page had only 3 words stamped in bold. "You've been watched." The lights in the room flickered. His phone buzzed once, then went black. Outside, tires screeched. Someone was coming, not to talk, not to warn, just to make sure he never reads again. Detective Hale sat alone in his dim office when a man in a dark coat stepped inside without a sound. He dropped a sealed folder on the desk and walked out before Hale could speak. The folder held old news clips, government papers, and strange photos. One page told of the Gulf of Tonkin, an event that led to war, later revealed to be false. Another showed the collapse of a third building on September 11th, which fell straight down though no plane had hit it. Next came blurry images from the Pentagon. No plane debris, only a small hole. The last part focused on the virus. Early signs pointed to a lab, but anyone who said it out loud was shut down. Reports were erased. Voices were banned. It wasn't just lies. It was a pattern: fear, control, silence. Hale stared at a photo tucked in the back. It showed him, taken from across the street that morning. On the back, a message was written in red ink. "You know too much." The lights flickered. Tires screeched outside. A shadow moved by the window. The case wasn't about the past anymore. It was about surviving what came next. The office was quiet, lit only by a small lamp. Detective Lane sat at his desk, going over old files. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A tall man in a dark coat stepped inside. He didn't speak, just handed over a flash drive and walked out. Lane plugged it in. The screen is filled with documents. They showed private messages from big tech companies. Twitter had been told by government agents to delete posts. Facebook's fact-checkers were not neutral. They worked with secret groups. Google changed search results to hide certain stories. Videos and pages disappeared without warning. It wasn't random. It was planned. A system to control what people saw and believed. Lane's phone buzzed. A message appeared. "They're watching." Suddenly, the screen turned black. Loud noises came from outside. Lane looked through the window. 2 black vans parked nearby. He felt a chill. They were coming. He grabbed the flash drive, put on his coat, and left through the back door. The city was dark and cold. What he found was bigger than he imagined. The people who controlled the truth were now after him. And this time, he wasn't sure he could escape. Detective Ross sat alone in his small office. The light above flickered. A knock came. A quiet man in a long coat stepped inside and dropped a brown folder on the desk. "They're using global names to hide control," he said, then walked out fast. Ross opened the folder. It held papers from the WHO, IMF, and WEF. He read about a health deal that could control every country. One paper spoke of loans that trap poor nations. Another quoted a leader saying, "You will own nothing." Each page showed how power was taken without force. Ross felt a chill. He put the folder in his coat and stood up. Suddenly, the lights shut off. A loud alarm began. A voice on the speaker said, "Shut all exits." He ran to the back stairs. Outside, a black van waited. 2 men in dark suits stood near it. Ross turned to run, but the man from earlier stood behind him now. He stared at Ross and said, "You saw too much." Before Ross could move, everything went dark. A thick file slid across the table. Detective Hale didn't ask where it came from. The man who brought it wore no badge, no name, just a cold stare and a black coat. "Truth's buried under noise," he muttered before vanishing into the shadows. Hale opened the folder. Inside were transcripts, emails, and old broadcast tapes. Names jumped off the pages: Snowden, Manning, Assange. Reports on hidden systems watching people night and day. One marked file showed Carlson's talk with Putin, lines underlined in red, talks of secret deals and NATO's quiet spread. Then came screenshots from a social site, proving orders to hide posts, silence voices, erase facts. Hale stood up, uneasy. The air felt heavier. From the hallway, footsteps echoed closer. He locked the folder in a drawer. His office phone buzzed. A voice whispered, "They know you looked." The line cut. Windows went black. Someone was at the door. But it wasn't the stranger. It was his partner. Eyes dull, gun raised. "They offered me a choice," she said, voice cold. "You were never supposed to see this." Then silence filled the room. The stranger handed Hale a small drive. No words, just a nod and a quick exit through the alley. Back at his desk, Hale opened the files. Numbers poured across the screen. Charts, studies, hidden polls. One showed how Congress had lost public trust but somehow kept their seats. Another flagged code within voting software. Years apart, same flaws, same patterns. His fingers paused over a folder titled Island Operations. Inside were logs, photos, and names linked to Epstein's network. Many were still in power. Hale's jaw tightened. These weren't just rumors. They were records, buried deep. A ping echoed from his laptop. An unknown connection had been made. Lines of code rewrote his files, one by one. Too late to pull the plug. His screen went black. Outside, an unmarked van idled. He reached for his sidearm, but a voice came through the radio. His captain's, steady and cold. "You went too far, Hale." Static follows. The door creaked open. Not the stranger this time, but two men in suits, no badges, no expressions. One nodded at the other. "Cleanup detail." Detective Hale returned to his office late. A plain folder sat on his desk. No name, just a strange symbol on the front. Inside were old news clippings, blacked out pages, and recordings. Each piece showed how powerful people controlled elections, passed laws for money, and fooled the public. It wasn't clear proof, but it all fit together too well to ignore. As he read, the lights dimmed. A man in a dark coat stepped inside. His face was hidden. He placed a phone on the desk and said, "You've seen too much." Then he vanished. Hale opened the phone. A video started. It showed leaders in secret meetings, joking about fake votes and rigged rules. The camera turned. One face looked straight at Hale's screen. "People won't believe this," the man in the video said. "They'll call it a theory, like always." The screen went black. The room fell silent. Then he heard slow steps outside his door. The lock turned. Someone else was coming. Hale stood frozen. He now knew the truth, but knowing came with a price. The station clock struck 3 a.m. when Detective Morrow found the old man waiting in the shadows near the alley. He handed over a cracked hard drive, then disappeared into the fog. Morrow took it back to his office, where flickering monitors lit up a stream of files. Plans for mass surveillance, financial schemes tied to major banks, and silent deals made by untouchable elites. Each document confirmed what whistleblowers had only hinted at for years. It wasn't just politics. It was a structure designed to control minds, money, and movement. The files even showed leaked proposals to replace paper currency with full digital control, run by private hands behind public faces. One file marked Lockstep outlined a slow plan to make citizens dependent, tracked, and silenced. Just as Morrow reached the last file, the power went out. Backup lights blinked on, but the hard drive was gone. A red note glowed on his screen. "They saw you," tires screeched outside. His phone rang once and stopped. He didn't run. He knew this case couldn't end with an arrest. It had to begin with a leak. But leaks come with blood, the kind no report ever writes about. You've glimpsed the machinery behind global injustice, where hidden powers shape our world. The deep state thrives in silence. But awareness is rising. Truth cuts through lies. Stay curious, stay critical, share what's hidden. Because only with light can we dismantle the shadows. The fight for freedom has just begun.
Like, share, and comment on our video.